You know what stands out? That third line where you see Bobby McMahon back in the NHL with Sam
Yeah.
Lafferty and William Nylander. What's your concern with Wild Bill? 2 goals in the last 10 games, no assist. And Sheldon Keefe was speaking about him a bit after practice on Monday as well. You see the quote on your screen right there. He hasn't been the same guy, but again, the expectation that all 82 games he's going to be the same player is insane to me. There's only select few players in this league that will play that way, but what's your level of concern when it comes to Nylander and his lack of production lately?
It's not very high. I gotta admit, I'm surprised that the numbers are kind of that low because the numbers don't look ideal. But I haven't noticed him being outlandishly, lazy or incompetent or perimeter or
Yeah.
anything like that. I just think he's not getting the bounces right now. But I mean, Keefe knows these guys a lot better than anyone else. He knows them better than we do. He knows them better than the fans do, than the Twitter does. He knows these guys, and I have a feeling that Nylander can get kind of in a little rut, and he just kind of puts his head. And Keefe knows, hey, I got to crack the whip on this guy once in a while. He shakes his head and comes up and says, "What the hell?" and then puts the Jets on. Where maybe a different guy on the roster, you could never do that to. You got to, Austin Matthews had points in this season where he looked kind of non-existent. It's like, where is this
Yeah.
guy? Where is that flash? And was there any public calling out by Keefe on him? No. And is that wrong or unfair? No. These are all unique players and unique personalities. And a guy like Keefe, I think he's got his finger on the pulse pretty well about these guys' personalities, and I think he knows them a lot more intimately than coaches of the past ever would. And I believe him when I say, hey, when I hear that he's going to call out Nylander and say you need to be better, that he knows that's what's best for him and that's what he needs. And if he doesn't do it to someone else, it's because he knows that guy needs to work it out on his own. And they have their private conversations that we're never going to be privy to. But I don't have a problem with it. My radar's not going off with Nylander. I think he could just as easily just crank it up, and maybe he's taking a breather here before the playoffs because he knows this has got to be a year to shine. Nonetheless, I'm not concerned about him like some people are.
Again, social media is always bewildering, and I saw some quote tweets suggesting, oh, if that was Mike Babcock with that quote, Leafs Nation would be up in arms. But because it's Sheldon Keefe, nobody cares. It's such a sensitive world, man. Like, I've got no issue with a coach calling out his player indirectly or directly for that matter. And that was probably indirectly. Hey, Willie, we need you to be better. We understand, it's still the regular season. Become game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. He has to play like the guy who he's played like for the majority of the season, right? Like you played in this league. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. I don't think there's too much to write into this situation. I'm overlooking the fact that he's going to be on the third line because Sheldon Keefe has jumbled up the line so much that every game it changes after like 3 shifts anyways.
Yeah, it's a blip on the radar. I mean, he could easily, thread one to Lafferty tonight, and he's going to bury, and then he could get a breakaway and bury two, and then he's the songbird of the day.
Exactly.
And I mean, to compare to say that, oh my goodness, if Babcock said this, you'd get in trouble, but it's okay if Keefe says it. Keefe says it from a place of genuine, kind, caring, like coach hands-on, and Babcock would do it like a cold, callous, arrogant asshole, like everything else he fricking did, where you can just tell that everything that comes out of that guy's mouth is about him and about his arrogance and how much he loves himself, and everything's calculated on what makes me look the best, and Keefe's just not that way. So the comparison is fricking ridiculous, and I don't put any stock into it at all. I believe that Keefe genuinely cares very much about this group and gets to know them intimately and is doing everything he can for the best of the team. And you would think that all coaches are doing that, but it's not always the case, man. I mean, to compare him and Babcock is ridiculous.